like resilience. I hear that word and my whole body swells, heart and everything around it. It's everything. Adversity. I mean, it's everywhere in my life. I mean, and I'll take it all the way to more present tense, where I'm sitting talking to Barack Obama, doing this long interview for my fourth big book on presidents in America in this time of challenge and peril. And it's called Confidence Men, Wall Street, Washington, the Education of a President. That'd be Barack Obama, about the fall of the economy, the rise of Obama, his first 2 difficult years trying to guide and steer that ship of state. So here we are. It was a tough interview. And he knew it was going to be tough because I'd been in the West Wing for 2 years. They all love my books. My first book, A Hope in the Unseen, about the kid who goes from the blighted inner city to the Ivy League, one of Obama's faves. And of course, all those books I wrote on George W. Bush, 3 big books, fair but tough. Everyone in the West Wing had them on their shelves. I just walked around signing books for 2 years. But I kept saying, I'm not on your team. I'm a reporter. You know, I'm not like some folks who love you, who I know too, Jonathan Alter, David Remnick, they already love you. I'm not going to be like that. I wept in Grant Park. I admitted that at the start, but I've reported, and it's going to be tough. So we have a tough interview. And then the second half of the interview, well, I tell him if he stays for the second half and doesn't shoo me away, because that's when you, by the way, when you get your interview with the president, what's going to happen? However long it's slated for, let's say it's a half an hour. After 15 minutes, an aide will walk in with a little card they will hand to the president. It's a blank card. I'm just telling you that in advance. The president gets to look at the card and go, you know, we've got something happening in Azerbaijan and you're out. Okay. That's to get the president out of trouble. Okay. So halfway through the hour-long interview, the aide walks in, gives him the card. Obama looks up at me. I'm like, come on, bubble up. Come on now. He's like, all right, let's go. The second half of the interview was like therapy and lovely and about adversity. And we got up there in the Oval Office. I'm sitting on the mustard couch. He's in the wing chairs. There's a wing chair with busts of Lincoln and King behind him. And we talk about the challenges he faces and he has faced in his 2 years. And I say, well, let me go to an old friend of mine, Shakespeare, who was Jewish. It's little known, but he was a Jew. History is not clear on that, but I'm sure he was, because he's got that great line from As You Like It. Sweet are the uses of adversity. The second part, though, most people don't know. Which, like the toad, ugly and venomous, bears a jewel in its forehead. That is a Jewish saying. It might as well be in the Talmud in 10 places. Find the jewel. That's what Jews do. And we have faced adversity for thousands of years and searched and found the jewel time and again. That certainly is the story of my little life, but it is also that, I believe, of the country, because the ways the Jewish ideals have affected history, the growth and progress of man, as well as this nation, is the same way it lives in our lives. So how does it live in my life? Well, first off, I have a mother, okay, in case you're wondering. And she was a small Jewish woman from Brooklyn, heart of the old world, about this tall, 5 feet tall on a good day, wearing heels. Ferocious, went to Brooklyn College. That great seedbed of high achieving women and as well their children. And she more or less laid it out when I'm a kid. I mean, not in so many words, but pretty close. It was kind of, I won't love you any less if you're not a success. I just won't mention your name to other people. So which is kind of true, actually. Years later, as a reporter, I would be sitting from time to time with a Jewish woman of a certain age. Now, it's not just Jews, so there's something in motherhood there, but it's certainly fully expressed among our people. And I'd sit there, I said, 45 minutes we've been talking, and there's a son other than the doctor. Who knew? That's just the way it is. It's the way it is in America. I call it the ooh-ahs. Ronald's going to Harvard. Ooh. Leonard's going to Dickinson. Owen's going to Cape Cod Community College. Now, what's that all about? I don't know, but it's somewhere in the genes. So I am raised under a motivational methodology, which has created extraordinary outcomes. I call it the motivational power of conditional affection. And look, she's always going to love me, but boy, the love really came when I hit the bell. I mean, it flowed. And so I hit the bell. That's the way I did it. And all that's working out just fine as I move forward in my life. But, you know, I started to face some things at a young age. You're not seeing me now because I'm sitting down. I'm about 6'5". What? Joan, why are you laughing? This is actually my full height. I'm 5'6". I stopped growing, though, in an emergency moment for the family when I was about in 4th grade. I was like the kid in the tin drum, just stopped. So by the time I get to junior high school, I am all of 4 feet 1 inch. I mean, that's like Peter Dinklage and a little. Okay. This creates an enormous crisis in the Susskind family. We see leading doctors, which we do as Jews. Who's the number one? Who's the specialist? Who is the best? We get to the best. It's a guy at Johns Hopkins, a giant Gandalfian guy. I hadn't even read Lord of the Rings at that point, but he looked like Gandalf. Tall, flowing white hair. And he had behind him a phalanx of South Asian doctors, which was a little ahead of his time. And he examines me and he looks concerned. And he calls my parents in. I'm sitting out in the waiting room. And they get the verdict, 4'10", maximum adult attainment. Okay, now we're living in Wilmington, Delaware, with Joe Biden, old friend of mine. And we have to drive from Baltimore, Johns Hopkins, where the eminent specialist specializes, all the way to Wilmington. And there was tears in the car. I knew something was up, but I didn't know what. About 2 weeks later, I go out and get the mail. And it is junk mail from an association in Saratoga, New York. I'm there. I bring back the mail, the TV guide, and something else. And there it is. It's called Parents of Dwarf Children. I hand this to my mother. Mom, is this for us? Is this for us? Am I the dwarf? Oh, Ronald, I can't talk about it. Throw it in the garbage. This is my life. But my mother says to me, again, something I'm sure in the Talmud at least 15 times, you can do anything you set your mind to. Now, this is powerful, but sometimes treacherous advice, because that's not true, as you know, but it works to give you the energy to think anything is possible. And I did. And I went for it in every way. Now, that meant not just pleasing the dinner party guests, because that was extra dessert for me. And, oh, Ronald, please stop. Just one more routine. And it allowed me to be large in all sorts of ways. Now, that's the start. But then, man plans, God laughs, adversity comes from all sorts of places. Next stop on the train is the guy I'm just like. We have a family, I mean, some families are like this, where it's a nice even divide, where one side is like one parent and the other side like the other. Well, I am like my father. My father, though, finds himself in a hospital bed at 46, and he is on death's door. He writes a letter to me and my brother, tumor of the pancreas, about living the worthwhile life. And this was given to us after his death by my mother. And I use it as a talisman through my life. It's a beautiful letter. Again, a kind of letter that we're inclined to write as part of the values of the Jews. He says, I hope you boys, me and my brother, 2 years older than me, I'm 14, he's 16. I hope you never read this letter, but I cannot ignore what the doctors have said. They say my chances of survival are slim. They were Zippo. He tells us all about values. I grew up with values in my home, and we have values in our home, Jewish values. Those values will be all you need. They're your compass and your sextant. They will take you through your life. He says a beautiful thing, knowing who his partner was. He said, and one thing I'll tell you boys don't owe me and your mother anything. You've given us more by being a presence in our life than we ever possibly could give to you. My mother disagrees with that almost at every level. You owe me big, both of you. Everything you are, you owe me. They're both right. And that's the life that brings me up to the next big station stop in the uses of adversity. This is like the uses of adversity sweepstakes, resilience, response, the affirmation of life, sometimes through pain. That's the way it works, right? So here I am, living the perfect life. We are so excited. Perfect little family, me and the wonderful Cornelia. If you saw Life Animated, you know I am the lucky guy. And we're there with the 2 perfect children. We use perfect a lot back then. We don't use that word anymore. In the little starter home, Walter, our oldest, is 5. Owen is just about 3. And there we are. I work at the Wall Street Journal, which is very wonderful. My mother's living in South Florida, where Jews go, as you know. It's kind of our hereafter, you know. And they think I'm the editor of the Wall Street Journal there. I'm just a reporter, but it's a great place to be. And we moved to Washington, where I get an amazing job, which is senior national affairs writer for the Wall Street Journal, the biggest paper in the country in those days, in the 90s. And it's exciting. A new house for the Suskins, new friends, dad's in the Washington Bureau, the Journal. After a few months, though, I stopped telling Cornelia stories of what's happening to me because she's got too many stories about what's happening with Owen. She's like, something is very wrong. And he's not looking at you. Look, call his name. Owen. Turns away. Doesn't turn back. He won't look at you either. He won't meet your eye anymore. And his speech is starting to vanish. I mean, literally almost by the day. 3 months in, he's down from full speech to one word, juice, only word, one. You know, something's gone haywire. We take him to a doctor. And they say, you need a specialist, and we do. And we sit with a woman in a white smock, and she says, this is called autism. I'm like, you mean like Rain Man? That guy? She's like, kinda. But, you know, he speaks. And Owen's regressive autism. He lost almost all speech, I think. So he may not get speech back. Many of them, when the regression is this dramatic, it's about 1/3 of all cases of autism are regressive. They often won't talk anymore. That's the last thing I hear in the doctor's visit. Cornelia too. I mean, literally, we both lifted out of our bodies. I mean, we remember like it happened Tuesday. And we're looking down at the parents and the doctor and this child on the rug, looking at his hand. And we still live in the world that began that day. Everything before that was a before time. We were due to learn a great deal. Owen doesn't speak for many years. What he does, if you saw Life Animated, is he found a way. Again, part of the Jewish values. There's always a way. Figure it out. Just use your brain. There's nothing you can't do if you set your mind to it. What does Owen do? He memorizes 50 Disney movies, all of them, since Snow White in 1937. He's watching them incessantly. His motor function went to hell. Autism does that, except one thing, his thumb on the rewind button. And he rewinds parts and he's watching them over and over. And what's happening? He's memorizing the movies. We don't realize this until years later when he's 7 and his older brother's 9, and they go up to his bedroom because he has come to us on the day of his brother's birthday. And, you know, his brother is the world's toughest Jew, as we used to say. He's like Mossad in America. And that's often the case with the siblings of folks on the spectrum or those who are disabled. They become little grown-ups at like 5 years old as soon as they see mom and dad have their hands full. And I'm David Copperfield. I'm a character in the world. Walter is tough, and he cries on only one day, his birthday, which we don't even notice, doesn't fit our story. Owen notices. And on Walter's 9th birthday, he gets a little weepy in the backyard. Owen comes into the kitchen and says to us, Walter doesn't want to grow up like Mowgli or Peter Pan. Now, he only is up to a 2-word sentence at that point. This is a giant sentence with a comma in the middle, and it's something we didn't even know. We didn't even see. Of course, Cornelia and I are struck blind and dumb. We can't stop talking for hours. He's memorized the movies. He's using them to make sense of the world, our world. And then she says to me what a wife will sometimes say to a husband, especially a wife who's been up nights for 5 years while the husband's going to work and has now got to go to bed because she's tired. She says, your job is to find a way back in, Mr. Happy Face. I mean, you play the clown at the birthday parties, find a way in. I go up to the bedroom. Owen is sitting up there in the bed looking at a Disney book. All right, now we have everything Disney buys because Disney is his whole world. Now, he doesn't read, but he loves the pictures. And I see him on the bed. Now, I see near the bed on the ground is a puppet. It's one of those big plush toys. It's Iago, the evil sidekick to the villain Jafar in Aladdin. You know this character. That's Gilbert Gottfried. All right. I go across the rug quietly. I grab the puppet. I pull it up to my elbow. I don't want Owen to see me. Not there's much risk of that. He's not going to really turn. He doesn't do that. I throw the bedspread over my head. I push the puppet up through the bedspread. He's right there. And in Iago's voice is here, Owen, how does it feel to be you? And he turns to the puppet like he's bumping into an old friend. And he says, not good. I have no friends and I'm lonely. Now I bite down hard under the bedspread and just say, stay in character. What would Iago say next? When did you and I become such good friends? When I watched Aladdin, you made me laugh. And then we talk. Iago and Owen. It's our first conversation in 5 years. It's heaven. And I throw off the bedspread. It says, Owen, we are talking in Disney dialogue. Another thing, Jewish values. We are people of the book. We are people of story. This is just a story. We're living it. We find a story to help us live our own story. It's the story of a boy who lived stories and then found his own. And that's what happens in our family. We start playing characters every night. I mean, we seem just like the rest of you, like normal people. We go to work during the day. Walter's going to school. He's playing football, which, is a first for our family. Cornelia is dragging Owen to every therapist who hangs a shingle. Dad is interviewing presidents, some of whom I get along with just fine. And other ones are saying, Suscan, I don't like you. First time I met you, I didn't like you. Meanwhile, every night we go to the basement and we play movies. We take characters. I mean, that's all we do. Over years, Owen gets his speech back. 4 years. And then grows into his life. Sweet are the uses of adversity, which like the toad, ugly and venomous, bears a jewel in its forehead. I have written books, as you know, about presidents too. and about difficult times in which we're living. And at one particularly tough moment, when I'm writing about the weapons of mass destruction in the Iraq War, and I'm right in the thick of that, I'm with a guy named Doug Feith. Feith, Wolfowitz, all Jewish guys who served George W. Bush. Brilliant, brilliant fellas. And I'm with Feith, and I'm in his office, and he's a big Jew. He's a big contributor. He's a Jewish scholar. And I know they're doing some things that they would rather not know, or I know that they're doing, to get to the ends that they think are noble. They're doing what's necessary. So I'm in his study, and he knows I know this, and he knows I have some evidence of this, and it's a tough interview. And I say, well, you know, Doug, there's this line, Deuteronomy, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, this you must pursue. He's like, know it. He moves the ficus, and it's there in a needlepoint on the wall in a little frame. I'm like, there you go. I said, do you know why justice is mentioned twice? He says, yep, absolutely. Because justice is such an important concept that it's mentioned twice for emphasis. Justice happens in many ways, and that's what it says. So I said, no, I checked this with the rabbis, and they don't agree on much, but on this, they agree. Justice is mentioned twice, once for the ends and once for the means. Oh, that's wisdom from Deuteronomy, isn't it? It's very much the wisdom that carries us forward when our lives are at their best. We want what we want. We want to get to those ends. It's how we get there. It's what makes all the difference. Justice and the means, and how we treat each other. You all have heard the Hillel, Rabbi Akiva line. The two of them are walking down the street in Judea and Samaria somewhere, eminent rabbis, and a guy bounces up on one foot, kind of a jester, you know, of ancient times. And he says, famous rabbis, tell me the meaning of the Talmud while I bounce on one foot. Well, the learned rabbi says, this man's a fool. I will not indulge a fool. You know, you can spend your whole life studying Talmud and not understand its essence. And Rabbi Hillel goes, you must meet them wherever they stand, even if it is on one foot. Love thy neighbor as thyself. The rest is commentary, Hillel says. Virtually every Talmud of every religion has that at its center, but very much it starts fully with the Jewish Talmud. I love that. It gets to the wisdom that brings us to all the things that we do so very well. I'm involved in all sorts of debates about diversity, equity, inclusion, about people not being judged harshly by prejudice, by presumption, by often color of their skin or the appearance of something that bespeaks the other tribe. We've been on the receiving end of that for thousands of years. And the Jews very much are and should be at the center of saying that in all the essential ways, we are all identical. That's what we learn. It is at the core of the humanist ideal. That is who we are. The Jewish religion, the Old Testament, the Talmud, it's a profoundly humanistic offering to mankind. Find us. We are one. Save one person, save the world entire. It's about the gift of life. And that's why we give mightily, crazily. What the hell else are you going to spend it on? I mean, what more do you need, really? I mean, I'm really. I come from a long line of UJA fundraisers. My grandfather, Ben Susskind from Kingston, a hero of UJA. I mean, my God, he wasn't a wealthy man, but good God, did he give? And he made others give. It was crazy. At one point, the IRS guy, who, of course, in a little town in Kingston, New York, everyone knew everyone, he comes in and he knocks on the door and he says to my grandmother, Stella, I got a call from the regional office. You're claiming too much. You're giving away too much. They want me to examine you, to do a little audit. So I was like, oh, come on, Herbie, come on up. I'll give you some mandel bread and some tea. I've got a box. She's got shoe boxes. I'm in a closet of them, of every single receipt. Why? Because Ben, the great giver who had an overflow funeral like you never saw, he says, and Stell, remember to keep the receipts. It's a Jewish story. I just want to say to you before we get to Q&A, because I think I went a little over my time, that there's nothing that gives me greater joy than to be with Jews in days like this. This is when our character is tested. This is when what is best about us, why we are actors across the long arc of history, 3,000 years, why we have survived and certainly in this great land of opportunity prospered. Wow. What a 60, 70 years it's been since the mid-century. Yes, there's anti-Semitism. Yes, there are horrors left and right. Yes, we may be moving into a difficult time. No doubt about that. But wow, what a run. What a good time to express the values that are in our hearts. So, well, I'm dying to hear a few questions, and I will finish with a little flourish. So let's mix it up.
Ron, wow. Thank you so much. You are an amazing storyteller and so inspiring. Thank you. You so beautifully wove together your personal, professional, and Jewish experiences. And I personally am deeply moved. I've got some questions to ask you, and I'm going to ask you one quick one off the record. I just want to know, is Owen still living independently? Because the documentary is a few years old.
Yeah. Thank you, Joan. Owen sends his love. He's actually coming up tomorrow. All the lights went out in Cape Cod. We had a terrible storm here in the East Coast, so he's going to catch the bus. Yes, he's living where you saw him in the movie, in that condo in the community, living independently forever. His dream was the independent life. That's as he told us, and he found it. It's his own condo. He's got jobs he lost during COVID because the movie theater closed. He works in the movie theater, and as he's got a job there. And Dick's Sporting Goods, he loves Dick's. Great store, great franchise. He also draws. He sells some of his art. Owen has a copyright that his father negotiated in and around the book. I think there were 8, now there are 9. With the Walt Disney Corporation, that he can draw Disney-inspired art and sell them as his own copyright, which is
outstanding.
Because he's a great artist. I mean, you saw him; it's lovely, it's amazing.
Very good.
So he does that. He still is searching for the next big relationship. Those of you who haven't seen the movie, I won't tell you what happens. There is a very big relationship in the movie. They are no longer together. I won't tell you anything more. So he's looking for love. He's really a poet of love. I mean, he watched all those Disney movies. I mean, he inverted the usual pyramid. Okay, usual pyramid. We come in as babies, blooming, buzzing confusion, and we sort of work our way up the pyramid to moral truths. Okay, it takes a little while. Oh, and it's upside down. He arrives in a maze of confusion, and he ingests the Disney movie. They got the moral precept right in the middle. So he gets the morality early. And then as he moves out into the world, he tests these moral precepts to see if they are real, if they do abide in a life. And I think he's been mostly pleased about love, about let your conscience be your guide. So he's good. He's
I'm happy
good.
To hear that.
And Walter, I want to mention Walter too, though, because Walter, who is the older brother and beloved by people all over the world, Walter started something called Sibstrong for siblings. That's like a big national hoo-ha. It's an online thing. They have communities and towns all over the country, and it's for the siblings who are key actors in the drama. And Walt is kind of the king of the siblings. In the movie, he has that beautiful moment on the dock where he talks about someday it'll just be me, and I'll be there for Owen, however long it is and however long it takes. And siblings from all over the world called Walter. So he started an organization. If there are any siblings out there, or parents of siblings, or people on the spectrum, people neurodiverse, in any way, I go to SibStrong and form a group. Walt drops in. He's got a curriculum. Young siblings talk to older ones to help them see what their life is about, what it's going to be like. So the family's good. Thank you for asking, Joe. Thank you.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, thank you for the update. So we do have a couple of questions that we'd love to, get your opinion on. How does our Jewish history and value systems inform us to be citizens of these times? In other words, what have we learned along the course of history to help guide us through these challenging times?
I think, look, we are foundational to the way the world is now. And again, it comes from the stories. Now, look, we could debate this, but the Old Testament, the Talmud, I mean, it's just a couple old Jews sitting around going, okay. Now, look, I think if the Red Sea parts, you're going to get some action. That's going to be good. I think that's going to be very positive. I mean, they were storytellers, and they wrote the great story of humanity. And it goes back to the origin moment, God to Abraham. They have a conversation, and basically God says to Abraham, we have a covenant now. Are we clear on that? Yes. And Lech Lecha, go forth. Now, those two words are huge. What does it mean? It's the beginning of the concepts that define every life on earth, I believe at this point, certainly in much of the world. Before that, basically, people saw you were born, you died in the same spot. You were not really on a journey. But Lech Lecha, go forth, means two things: uncertain future and individual destiny come from those two words. All of this is from that. What we find carrying forward that ideal of the primacy and sanctity of self, of our journey, each of us on a journey. And of course, stories are all about journey. It's what we learn as we move. It's what we discover, that even in the most difficult times, we do not let our core humanistic values flag. It's what saves us again and again. We're right there, moment after moment, give in to hate, seek revenge, kill them before they kill us. Now, we know how to fight, though it is not our greatest strength. We see the humanity in the other. And ultimately, some will always look back at us and recognize what we see in them. And that saves us and saves the world again and again. I mean, that's what we're doing now, right? Enormous division in America, tribal, deep, driven by an enormous set of changes. I'll just give you a little factoid which helps with history. Gutenberg, we're in a Gutenberg moment now, okay? The 150 years after Gutenberg, let's think about that. Before Gutenberg, who had the truths? The nobles, the priests, the elites of that time. They told everyone else what to believe, and I'll have no argument. Then Gutenberg starts printing. People are reading and going, whoa, what about this? It's bottom up. It was top down, and then it became bottom up, just like now. And that meant 150 years of religious wars. The founding fathers come a century after that, on the tail end of that, having seen that, saying, oh, that's what we don't want. So they create the architecture of America using Enlightenment principles and say religion will be everyone's business and no one can encroach on it. You can worship any way you want here, but the state is not involved other than protecting your right to worship, period. Clean line. Some of that has bled these days, though. Bad, bad. And we're dealing with folks who have profound certainties based significantly on religious posture or wide sweeping end of days ideals or notions of certainty that are very much like religion. It's going to be a difficult time, make no mistake. So we must again and again look at our values and use them to guide us. It will again save us and save the world. How? Many ways, I can't tell, but I know it will.
Thank you. Wow, I have many more questions, and unfortunately, I don't have enough time for any more questions. But I cannot thank you enough for being here. You have made our event so special this evening, a truly memorable evening. Thank you so much for being here.
I just want to finish up to say I love being with you. I mean, and my whole family sends the nachas and love to all of the Milwaukee mishpacha. Let me just finish with a story that will bring joy to you about how we reach out across divides. And it's a quickie, but a goodie. All right. So about right before the pandemic, about a year before the pandemic hits, Owen and I get an invitation. Okay. And it's an invite to keynote a conference because, you know, the family, we are on the road a lot and we do shows and we do things. And it's Owen and I, we're going to the Vatican. That's right. The Vatican. It's a big giant conference called Unite to Cure. People from all over the world come, leading specialists in genetics and healthcare and dignitaries. They all come to the Vatican. Owen and I open up the weekend with Owen on the stage is a miracle because, you know, I just feed him lines and he does Disney voices. I mean, it's like you're listening to the movie and then talks about what it really means and everyone kafels. And so that opens the weekend. But then we get a call. Everyone gets a note on Friday night saying tomorrow morning, the Pope may actually meet with the delegation. This doesn't happen that often. Now, it's about 500 people. And look, everyone's there. It's a big crowd and quite a crowd. But sure enough, the Pope is coming. 9 in the morning, we all rush over. If you go to the Vatican, you see St. Peter's. And then just to the left is a giant hall. And that's where we are. And we're in the front row. They put us in the front row. Why? Because sometimes the Pope will do his spiel and then walk down the steps and walk the row. All right. And sure enough, that's what the Pope does. He comes out of a little Harry Potter door, you know, comes out there and he's got, you know, his headphones and he says, oh, and everyone, oh, you know, it's beautiful. Then he walks down the steps and he starts walking the row. Now, the row are mostly really old, rich Catholics who want a blessing, like a whole line of them. They're old and they're rich. And the Pope blesses and blesses and blesses. Now they can die happily. And it's being beamed out on the Jumbotron to the world's Catholics, by the way, all billion of them. And he comes in now 4 seats over from us in the front row is Katy Perry. Go figure. Yeah, she wanted to meet the Pope and she is done up. I mean, my God, that woman doesn't get a quart of milk without stopping at wardrobe first. And she is, you know, she's got a whole... And it's black, actually, because if you meet the Pope, just when you meet the Pope, let me help you out a little bit, you can't wear white. So just know that, Ed. It's like a wedding, and he's the bride. You can't wear white. So he sees Katy, and then he comes to Owen, last man in the row. Dad's there with the camera fumbling. It's really a scene. And Owen looks at the Pope the way no one looks at the Pope, just like another dude. And the Pope clearly sees is like, hey, which clearly was joy for the Pope. It must be tough being Pope. Everyone like, you know, that's no life. Sure enough, if there's a bond, I see it happening right there. They're like right here. And then they clutch hands, they grab hands. And Owen says, and this is Owen's philosophy, if you've read the book or saw the movie, he says, the sidekick helps the hero fulfill their destiny. It's the most important role. And the Pope goes, really? He goes, yeah. And you're the great sidekick because you help the world fulfill its destiny. And the Pope starts to cry. I love that. It's beautiful. And all the cardinals are behind him going, can we use this? And I'm like, it's all yours. I love that. That's Jewish wisdom.
Thank you for ending.
By helping others, we find our inner heroes. We help ourselves. This is what we're doing here tonight. This is what we do when we embrace tikkun olam, when we embrace the things that make us a people. Joy to all of you. Shalom.